Well, what do you think about this? So much for a quick repeal and replacement of Obamacare. In an interview with Bill O'Reilly, President Trump admitted that tearing down the ACA and installing a new plan could take at least a year. Now, just last month, President Trump claimed the new law could be in place as soon as Tom Price was approved as Health and Human Services Secretary. Well, that hasn't happened yet, but it's expected to happen this week. Regardless, Price reportedly chomping at the bit like an angry stallion to break out the jackhammer. So when is this all going to happen? And what's the holdup, boys? Joining me now to answer some of those very questions, it's Peter Suderman, features editor at Reason.com and Reason Magazine. Suderman, Computerman, welcome back, my friend.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So the president laid out a new timeline for repealing and replacing Obamacare that could take over a year. What do you make of this new timeline, Peter?
Well, I think that Republicans are learning that health policy is hard and that the legislative process just takes a lot longer than anyone really expected. In particular, Trump's learning that. I mean, it seemed as if Trump really kind of thought that the executive branch, that the White House would be leading this process, and is now learning that all of this is going to come from Congress. And Congress is already behind as well. The committees in the Senate and the House were supposed to have replacement language drawn up by the end of January. They haven't even started yet. And so this process is just going to take a long time. However, Tom Price can start to take some actions to unwind the law in the meantime to bring it in compliance, in fact, with what Obamacare actually calls for. Because the Obama administration, basically, they kind of MacGyvered this thing.
Yeah,
it's really kind of held together with with like duct tape and matches, and Tom Price could take some steps to undo a bunch of that.
That's absolutely right. But I want to know how he does that. I mean, how do you, if you've got a year gap, and the big worry is 30 million people will lose their insurance if you gut the thing immediately. What specifically can Tom Price do to, maybe get rid of the individual mandate or enforce the law as it's written that paves the way for repeal and replace, that doesn't take insurance away from tens of millions of Americans, and B, doesn't totally swirl the healthcare market down the toilet?
I mean, this is a big dilemma for the Trump administration and for Republicans in Congress, is how to proceed with a simultaneous repeal and replace kind of option. It's why you're seeing Republicans start to talk about repairing the law rather than repealing and replacing it. The stuff that Tom Price can do can bring it into compliance with the statute. However, in many cases, what that would end up doing would make the law less pleasant for insurers.
Yeah.
In particular, there's the cost sharing subsidies. There are also some reinsurance subsidies. They could stop enforcing the individual mandate. But what all of this does is it kind of says to insurers, we're not going to be there to support you, and it makes it more likely that insurers would pull out of the market and that the marketplace would be destabilized. It is a tough problem, and there isn't a great short-term solution. So in some ways, I actually think that this is good news that Trump is recognizing that this is going to take some time and that Republicans need to proceed with caution.
Yeah, it's like we've gotten to the end of a deadly game of Jenga. And if you take one piece out, the whole thing could literally fall apart and collapse on top of itself. Because, you've got these various elements. Tom Price has said he wants to keep stability in the market, but you also have the individual mandate, which is prohibitive and too expensive, and you've also got the problem of pre-existing conditions. And it doesn't seem like you can maintain all of those elements at the same time in the same way and have it be something different than Obamacare.
There's no great way to do this quickly. But, if Republicans take some time, that, like I said, I think there are some steps that they can take to start unwinding the law in the short term. They're going to have to kind of balance some of the political risks here. And because unwinding the law without a replacement in place, or at least at the ready, is just inevitably going to destabilize the insurance market. Yeah. And I think part of this is the failure of Republicans to prepare over many years. They've been talking about repeal and replace since this law was passed in 2010, and they've never really come together around a replacement plan.
That's the best point, Peter, because, there are Democrats who say the Republicans don't have a plan at all, and that's not true. You've unfortunately got three very distinct plans from people like Rand Paul, Tom Price, and even Paul Ryan, and unfortunately they have not aligned themselves, and they're not going to do it in a vacuum. Republicans are going to have to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work, which now unfortunately looks like it's going to take longer than we thought.
That's right. The legislators are kind of getting skittish when realizing the political trade-offs that are involved in these plans. And that's why we haven't seen unity around them. I mean, if you think about, go back to 2008, before Obamacare, during the election, Hillary Clinton had a plan, President Obama had a plan, and those plans weren't exactly the same. In particular, Obama, during the campaign, didn't really talk up the individual mandate, but there was a lot that was the same about them, and they kind of talked them up, and they got people ready.
Yeah.
And they had similar goals, which was to spend a bunch of money and get a bunch of people covered. And Republicans don't even know what their goals are, and that is really kind of keeping them from making progress here.
They need to sit down and do some good old-fashioned Oprah journaling and see what comes of it and read all of their thoughts out loud. Peter Suderman, thank you so much. Come be on the panel. Come to New York City and be on the party panel.
Anytime.
All right. Consider it done. Thanks, man.